Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, July 4th. Happy 4th of July. My name is Alan, and I want to welcome you to my Spiritual Growth Through Recovery podcast. Purpose of these videos is to grow my spirituality by following the AA program of recovery, and I try to do that by being as honest, vulnerable, and accountable as I can be, which is why I make these videos, all right? I'm no expert in AA or spirituality or recovery. I'm just trying to live life on life's terms and do it sober. The recipe we follow here is we read the daily reading out of the AA Daily Reflection book, and I'll just share my take on the reading as well as some other topic. All right, so let's get started. Today the topic is going to be a natural faith and part 2 of the topic of failure that I started yesterday. All right, here we go. July 4th, Independence Day. A natural faith, deep down in every man, woman, and child, is a fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or another it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 55. I have seen the workings of the unseen God in AA rooms around the country. Miracles of recovery are everywhere in evidence. I now believe that God is in these rooms and in my heart. Today, faith is as natural to me, a former agnostic, as breathing, eating, and sleeping. The 12 steps have helped to change my life in many ways, but none is more effective than the acquisition of a higher power. All right, so this is something I remember reading, hearing early on in the program. And deep down, God is deep inside of us. It's not whatever we pursue outside; it is inside of us, and I do believe that. I definitely believe that. It's when I'm quiet and I'm still and I feel something moved, if I follow that never has failed me that I can think of. So, but it means like God is part of us, or we're part of Him. Where else would He be, right? I mean, it's if that's I think the connection that we feel to Him. So I don't know if you feel it, but I certainly do. Talks about we may be obscured by calamity or pomp or worship of other things. Calamity is stress. There's things that stress us out, and then we don't, obscure. We don't see it, or by boasting or vanity, or worship of other things. But that God is there in some form or another. He is there. And it talks about faith in that power, and demonstrations of that are as old as man himself. It's funny. The happiest, most generous people that I know are usually the ones who believe in some higher power. It never fails. That's something that I want to mirror myself, really. It talks about having seen the workings of the unseen God in AA rooms, and I have absolutely seen that. Sometimes that's the last bit of faith I have because I see it work. Which is why I can keep going back to the rooms. Miracles of recovery are everywhere in evidence. Why are they miracles? I think for people like me, getting and staying sober feels impossible, unimaginable, but it happens. And I think that's the miracle that they talk about. I think finally it talks about 12 steps have helped me change my life in many ways, but none is more effective than the acquisition of a higher power. That is, which is why it's kind of the word of the year for me. And I thank God for this change, I really do. Anyway, that's what I got from this reading. So I just want to follow up on our idea of failure. And so last time we talked about what failure is, and that's the lack of success or inability to meet an expectation. It's just not getting it done. And why is failure important? Because it teaches us perseverance, strength, and humility. It exposes our weaknesses, and it really tests how bad we want something, right? Our ego gets threatened and makes us feel bad. I think that's why failure makes us so feel bad. We talked about how it can leave us feeling hopeless, anxious, and depressed. And kind of talked about the whole idea of the fool becoming a master, and I'll probably wrap that up with that idea. So how do we typically respond to failure? What are normal responses? Well, I think we can wallow in it. We can feel sorry for ourselves. We can personalize it, and I do that. Me failing at this means I'm a failure. I just connecting dots that aren't really connecting. Or we can blame. We can avoid responsibility for that. None of those are healthy responses to that. So what are some healthy responses to failure? We can acknowledge our feelings on it. Acknowledge those irrational beliefs, or at least talk about those beliefs. Since I failed at this, I'm never going to become an engineer. Well, hold on. Just because you failed at that doesn't mean you want to accomplish something else. We need to let go of the need for approval. That's a big one for me. We need to accept responsibility. Can't take it personal, and that's something that's really hard not to do, especially when we really put our time and effort into something. You find a lesson in the failure. If I'm more focused on just learning and not being right or accomplishing, totally different world. And we can also reach out for help. So if we just look at failure as an opportunity to learn something, see what we can learn, and just keep going, and not get hung up on, oh my God, how we feel about it and how it defines us and that kind of thing. And then failure is just part of the process. And in many areas, like with my basketball training, failure doesn't bother me. But in other areas, like relationships or at work, it's a different world. So it's definitely a work in progress. I just want you to remember that for us to, at some point we reach a comfort zone. This is kind of, if we want to grow and expand that what our comfort zone is, then we're going to step into a world that we've never really stepped into. Therefore, we're going to try something we've never tried before, and therefore we're going to fail. We're going to stumble. And that's part of the goal. But I mean, if you think about it, we had to crawl before we could walk, and we had to do the ABCs before we can do words and sentences. It's just all part of the process. So knowing that we're going to struggle, we're going to stumble, fall along the way, but if we just keep at it, it'll come together and we'll just keep moving along. And so, I just want to encourage you to believe and embrace the idea that we're going to be a fool before we can be a master or be the savior, in any task that we're going to do. So anyway, I hope you're having a good 4th of July and being safe with your celebrations. I hope you got something out of the read, and I'll be back tomorrow for another reading. So until then, peace out.